Mindy, how are you doing? It's so good to see you.
It's great to see you. I'm super excited to be here.
I am so happy to see you, and I'm so happy for your new book. Oh my goodness, it feels like
Thank
literally
you.
just yesterday that Fast Like a Girl came out,
Tell me
and
about it. It was just yesterday. Try writing a book when one book takes off and then you go to write another book. Yeah, it was just yesterday.
yes, and I know that that brought on so much energy and so much conversation, and really the ascension, which is
Yeah.
this book, which we're going to be talking about today, which is Eat Like a Girl. And how I just really what I love so much is that here we are in a time where we are honoring our bodies, women's bodies,
Mm.
and learning how to
Mm.
align how we eat or what we're putting into our bodies that is life-giving, that is really in alignment with our cycles, with our bodies, with our
Yeah.
chemistry. And I love that you're leading the pack on this. So yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's interesting. I was recently somebody asked me about like trends that I saw that were happening in the health world. And I said, it's surprising that we've gotten to 2024. And one of the trends that's really taking off now is women understanding that everything in their life needs to be cycled with their hormones. And I think there were many of us that have been speaking about that. And I think it's really exciting that women are finally embracing that.
Oh, yeah. And I think they're beginning to see the gains, like the positive
Yes.
experience, the more energy, the more mental resilience, less stress, the more greater metabolic health, greater metabolic
Yes.
flexibility that just gives us a lot more range, especially
Yes.
in midlife, where
That's right.
we need that range. We need that
Yeah.
flexibility heading in. And I know that there was probably so much feedback coming back for you regarding Fast Like a Girl and what
Yeah.
women were experiencing, what they were loving. So what were some of those big experiences, or what were some of the things that were coming to you, the comments that women were offering you in terms of what you wanted to embody for this book?
Yeah, it's so interesting because I was teaching fasting on my YouTube channel for years and years and years. And then in my clinic, I was doing fasting different with women. And then I started teaching on my YouTube channel. So I had, for many years, I had already been rhythmically cycling fasting. And then the fasting movement just took off and it started to have so much popularity. And at the time, I kept saying, we need a book for women. We need a book for women. Women have to do it different. And do you know that like a majority of the publishers was like, no, we already have a lot of fasting books. We don't need another fasting book. And, I was blessed to have Hay House basically say like, hey, we hear what you're saying. Let's put this book out into the world. So I tell you that to say that I thought I was writing a fasting book for women. Like I was like, hey, here's this hot trend. This is how women do it. And I've proven this over and over and over again. It's tried and true. But what happened was that it became much more than a fasting book. It became a women's empowerment book. And that shocked me. So we had, hundreds of thousands of comments across socials and emails, just, with ahas around their hormones, which, as you know, like they're, as little as a couple of years ago, like nobody was talking about hormones. And so women were having all kinds of light bulb moments around their hormones. They were getting incredible results. But the big shocker for me was that so many women were like, the fasting window is working for me. I am getting results. But the minute I go back into food, I've got myself a huge problem. So out of such a beautiful, book that just helped inspire everybody came a really clear problem. And that's that women have a very dysfunctional relationship with food.
And for you, was that a personal experience as well for you? Growing up, I don't
Oh,
know.
yeah.
I mean, I definitely it's a very personal experience for me.
Totally personal. Yeah. I don't know if you had this, but one of the things that I actually fasting taught me was, and I didn't realize it till I started fasting, was that when I was a kid, I would come home from school, get off the little school bus, I'd go running into my house, and sitting at the kitchen table was mom with mom's love and a warm snack. And I started to equate food, yummy food, and mom's love. And then anytime I had a problem in my life, my mom would say, let me cook you something, let's sit down and eat. So fast forward into my 20s and 30s, I was an emotional eater. And so anything that happened to me that was troubling, I went to food to change my state. Now, once I started to learn the art of fasting, that became very problematic because you're like, 13, 14 hours into a fast and all of a sudden things are feeling a little little uncomfortable and I didn't have food to reach for. And that was the moment I realized, oh, wow, I have been an emotional eater. I eat to soothe my emotions. And that was back in my early 40s. I'm in my mid 50s now and have spent the last 15 years really changing that relationship with food so that it wasn't just this emotional crutch.
Hmm. And in that journey, I'm curious what ended up being, because I always find like it's great to have a sub or a way, now we're not taking something away. I mean, obviously, when you're in a fast, you're honoring that process, but I love to bring something in to support me, to soothe me, to kind of help to regulate me in that moment. For me, I definitely emotional eating for sure. Yes.
Yeah.
Check that box. I was a latchkey kid. So, but there was a lot of stress and a lot of trauma and things went down. And so I definitely leveraged food in that direction. But then also I was burned out in my 20s. And so I remember I would, to get even in practice, I would hit a wall at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, consistent hit
me too.
wall.
Me too.
And I would go to Pete's Coffee down the street and I would pick up a little something, to get me through. Cause let's be honest, patient load started up again at like 4:30 to like 7.
Yes.
So I had to find my way through that lull to get through the next patient load. And so I would have this, I got trained. I thought I was leveraging energy. And so that was another thing that I really struggled with is I had these crazy cravings in the middle of the afternoon, whether it was a busy full day or not. Like my brain was wired to that.
Yes.
And doing me no favors, let me tell you.
Yes. And then you try to go to sleep because you had Pete's Coffee in the afternoon and then you're tossing and turning and you can't go to sleep.
It's vicious.
It's vicious. I know that feeling. It's pretty gnarly.
So I'm curious because I know we're going to talk about food and our relationship to food today as well. But what I have some, and honestly, those moments, those slumps don't really happen anymore. Thank goodness. And if I do feel like I'm running down, like kind of on the downward swing, knowing that I'm a mom now, a preschool mom, as you know, nothing like being a preschool mom in perimenopause. And I know that my second shift, which is probably the biggest energy expenditure shift of my day, happens at 5 when I grab up my little, I'm going to get him 5 to like 8:15 or so. Like I'm on, it's full tilt on. And so if I have that, it's really rare to have a slump these days, not, at that time of the day. But if I do, I grab my shoes and I go outside. I get my Elementi water. Usually I get some like salt water, like orange salt's one of my favorites. I'll do an orange salt, put some ice in this guy and my Stanley. And then I head outside and I do a 10-minute walk and I reset. So that's my ultimate reset for energy. But basically I traded out these little snacky moments that were really straining my metabolic system. Like talk about putting the gas pedal to my metabolism and not in a great way. And now I'm trading it for these beautiful walks. And so I was curious if in your journey, if you had those moments, if you traded them for something else.
Well, I think the best door out of disordered or dysfunctional eating is understand your blood sugar. Like if you, if you put a continuous glucose monitor on you, and I do this with patients all the time where I'll be like, we're not even going to change anything in your diet. We're just going to put this monitor on and we're going to watch. And when you start to see what happens when you eat certain foods and how the impact it has on your body, it starts to change the choices that you make. So for me, and I have in Eat Like a Girl, I have what I call the foundational 5, which are like the 5 true rules that like every woman should follow. And principle number 1 is blood sugar matters, calories don't. And I really think if both men and women, but especially women, if they put a continuous glucose monitor on and just ate, they could actually see what that food was doing to their body. And now they would have a different relationship. It's like so many of us eat foods that are destroying our brains or eat foods that have hijacked our taste buds. Or I have a whole section in Eat Like a Girl on obesogens and the chemicals that are poured into food that turn our stem cells and reprogram them to make fat cells. It is like an abusive relationship that we have with food. And when you put a continuous glucose monitor on, what you're doing is you're shining light on this dysfunctional relationship. Very much like if you're in a dysfunctional relationship, sometimes you're so close to it, you can't see it. But then a good friend comes along and says, hey, he's not supposed to talk to you like that. You're not your best self there. And all of a sudden you start to see a different way. That's what blood sugar is for this relationship to food for women.
Oh, I 100% agree. I think it is the ultimate biomarker of your cellular energy and your metabolism. And you can learn so much. I think people have been walking around with deregulated insulin and blood sugar levels for so long, decades, maybe. Who knows, that they don't realize that they've been on this roller coaster, and that certain foods are really massive drivers of that. And I love when people have those massive aha moments when they put a CGM on for the very first time.
Oh, one of my favorite moments was a client that I was working with. She actually is a quite famous actress, and she was a vegan. And I was like, let's see if it's working for you. I don't know, maybe we just need to put some different combinations of food together. She was trying to balance her hormones, and she loved oat milk. And in the back of my head, I was like, I'm not sure oat milk is going to be great for you. But I didn't want to tell her, no, you can't have oat milk. I was like, let's just see what happens. She literally put oat milk in her coffee and watched the spikes. She watched her plant-based diet have these huge blood sugar swings. And she, like, within a week was like, oh my God. And when we looked at her CGM report, I said, tell me if that's how your moods feel. And she was like, yes. But here's what's interesting. Okay, we got rid of oat milk because oat milk is gnarly. But what I did is we started to look at the combination of foods. Let's bring in more protein. Let's bring in more fiber. Let's bring in more fat. Now let's see what your blood sugar does. So it wasn't like I all of a sudden turned her into an omnivore. She stayed plant-based. We just worked with the different combinations and how she put food together. This is where we should be all sitting in our relationship with food right now. It's not like avoid all these foods and eat all these. It's like, okay, we can all agree ultra processed foods are horrific. Now let's start to look at nature's foods and let's see which ones are right for your body. And the only way I can do that is through a CGM.
And when you put one on for the first time, Mindy, were there some aha moments for you? I'm just curious.
Oh, I put them on. I still put them on, and there's aha moments.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. This is going to kill you. This is going to shock you. So one of my favorite foods is I no longer eat cereal. Now I didn't eat like Kellogg's. I ate like, natural good cereal, but it was like an emotional food. If I just sat down with a bowl of cereal, I felt like a kid again. And like, there was something about it that would like fill my soul until I saw what it did on my CGM.
I can't even visit a hockey stick.
Oh yeah. It was like a straight up like 50, 60 points. And I was like, oh God, I never ate it again after. And I'm like, no wonder I'm sleepy after I eat cereal. But it was definitely the food that had to go away once I got the continuous glucose monitor.
That's a heartbreaker. And I don't know how many people, I know actually I have never put a continuous glucose monitor on a woman specifically, probably in midlife, who had the metabolic capacity for cereal. I don't ever see it. I put one on just recently. Oh, go on. Yeah.
No, did you ever do the master cleanse?
Oh, yes. Yes, I did.
So I did the master cleanse. This is before CGMs for 10 days. So just for people who don't know, the master cleanse it's lemon, cayenne pepper, water, and grade B maple syrup, which is horrific. But I did it for 10 days and then I broke it with cereal. And I couldn't get out of bed. I was like a zombie. That was back in my 20s before I knew how to fast and how to break a fast.
I mean, I feel like the master cleanse in its own right is going to do that to you at the end. I think I made it. I think the longest I ever made it through the master cleanse was probably 8 or 9 days. Yeah. And the juice was just not worth the squeeze.
No. Usually by about day 7, you just stop drinking it and you're in a water fast, and then you get ketones and you feel fine. Yeah. But yeah, it's a pretty gnarly cleanse.
Well, and especially, did you ever do the saltwater version of it, where you drink the thing of salt water
to get your bowels going?
Oh my God.
I wasn't that stupid.
So nasty.
I was only stupid enough to break it with cereal. How did that work for you?
It was awful. Okay, you have to be near a toilet. Like, don't go anywhere. It's just the amount of salt in that water is, you almost throw up. So
Wow.
just try to get it down is one thing. But then, man, it shoots out the other direction. It is.
Oh my
It is a
gosh.
whole. It's a very gnarly experience. I think the one time that I was like, okay, I'm doing this master cleanse full out. And I think you had to do the saltwater cleanse like every 72 hours or something. So it was like maybe 3 times throughout the program, this little program. And I think I made it the first 2 and I could not. You
Wow.
could not pay me to drink it the
Wow.
3rd time. So
Yeah,
it was
no.
awful. Yeah. It was
I
nasty.
think I'll skip that experience.
Yeah. Ooh. Yes. So yeah, I mean, gosh, the things we've look at the things that we've done, like
Yes.
just around, either trying to up our metabolism or trying to lose that extra weight. It's all, not understanding our hormones and how, I mean, I definitely didn't know the relationship between my hormones and obviously the connection between my sex hormones and my metabolic health, and also what foods to be really like that are fueling my hormones and my metabolic health. And so I agree with you. CGM, the first step, we should stop counting calories. We really need to work on our cellular energy.
I actually think we should stop counting everything. In my community, what I have found is that when you go to count, even in Eat Like a Girl, I have one section that I talk about, like, here is what a lower carb diet, I call it ketobiotic, would look like, and here's the hormones that would support, and here's higher carb, and it's called hormone feasting, and here's what these macros would look like. But then I leave it there. It's like, just so you have a guideline. But I think we've got a challenge right now when you look at diet trends, because one of the trends was the keto trend came through, and then everybody was like, okay, how many net carbs are you having? And everybody became obsessed with it. Now the protein trend is coming through, and everybody's like, oh, you got to get this amount of protein in, and you got to get this much at the first meal. And all of it is right. But the problem is that it's not sustainable. So it's like, use those moments, those macro moments, as knowing your target and what you're going for. But what I really want women to do is I want women to start to have a healthier relationship with food, and counting everything, including your blood sugar. It's exhausting. Yeah. And then we get on the scale. I mean, think about the numbers. You're like, I'm counting carbs, I'm counting macros, I'm counting fat, I'm counting blood sugar, maybe I'm counting calories. And then I get on the scale and I'm counting my weight. It's like, by the end of the day, I've counted 6 things that I could judge myself off of.
Well, you also didn't mention the Oura Ring or the Whoop.
Oh yeah, right. Counting my deep sleep and my HRV and my REM sleep. Like, for God's sake, let's live, and I'm just have this healthy relationship with food.
Let's talk about so I agree, CGM important. I agree, especially in midlife, which is a big part of my ladies. I know a big part of your ladies, that having good cellular energy becomes very important. So I agree, like learning that and learning, like I put one on, this is almost up to a month, turning 45. I was like, it's good. I probably put one on every quarter just to see if anything shifted. And there's this amazing coffee shop down the street from my house that I love, and they make their own natural, from scratch, organic almond milk. But I can taste sugar like nobody's business. Like I'm like sugar, because I just I personally don't have a lot of wiggle room. I have a great propensity for diabetes in my family, including my genetics. And so it's amazing. If I look at cereal, Mindy, okay, I look at cereal, not eat it. And so I'm still very dialed. But I could tell that they said they weren't adding sugar. There's no added, but they're making it from scratch. So I don't know what the recipe is. And so I'm like, I am going to know. This is going to be the truth telling moment.
What happened?
It rose my blood sugar by 20 points. And the coffee, the yummy coffee that I make at home, nothing. It doesn't touch my CGM will just stay. Maybe like 1 or 2 points, but 20 to 25 points. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Did you try putting MCT oil in it?
What I'm doing now, I ended up, I'm pairing it with breakfast, and because it is a special, now it's a special treat because
Yeah.
it is a, and so
Yeah.
I'm pairing it with breakfast, and I'm doing activity. So I am
Got it.
moving my body. I'm walking with it. I'm
Yeah,
going
there
to
you
the
go. So
ocean
you're
with
moving
it.
it through
Yeah.
you.
And
Yeah.
that'll keep it down to only like a 5 point
Yeah.
jump.
I
And
like that.
that's cool. That's cool. I can
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
that. But these are these things where I'm like, ooh, this new little beautiful, yummy habit that I have that I do a couple times a week. I'm like, what is it? What's it really doing? Like,
Yeah, yeah. But see, that's like what I call, you have a metabolic toolbox.
Yes.
And one of your tools is, if I'm going to eat something where my blood sugar spikes, I'm going to move my body so that I can use that glucose. And I think that's another place we've kind of lost our way in the health world, is we've become so rigid. And it's like, no, if you like that thing, I have something in the book that I call your personal value system. Like in my personal value system, I don't eat gluten. It's just not, it's just like, I won't eat it. But I'll have dessert if it doesn't have gluten in it, and it may spike my blood sugar, but then I can pull out of my toolbox a walk. I can pull out air squats. I can pull out apple cider vinegar. Like, there's so many tools I can pull out of there. So that's what I heard in that story.
Yeah, absolutely. That is very much the tools. And I find movement is my greatest tool. And I
Yeah,
love
me
movement
too.
already. So
Yeah.
I was like, one of my biggest life hacks for 45 is that you can get your metabolic and your blood sugar like back in line after 20 jump squats. You just knock out some
Oh,
jump squats. But I got a
amazing.
gluten-free, dairy-free cake for my birthday, and I got mini cupcakes for all the 3-year-olds running around.
Nice.
And it was from this really sexy bakery. And I was like, I'm having this. It's my birthday. I'm gonna have this cake, right? And
Yeah.
I've been running around, and I watched. It was really fun to watch it, and it went up. I think it went about 30 points. Which not
Yeah.
too bad, not too bad, but
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
definitely. And then I watched it go back down, and it stayed. And I woke up the next day, because back in the day when my metabolism wasn't humming, it would take me maybe more than a day to recover from that.
Yeah.
That's spike. But I woke up the next morning with a fasting blood glucose of like 72 milligrams per deciliter, and I was like, that's the metabolic bounce back that I'm
There
looking
you go.
for. That
Ooh,
I
I love that.
can do. I can eat. I could have my cake and eat it too,
That's
and
right.
enjoy it on my birthday, and
Yes.
know that I'm gonna obviously do beautiful things for my body the next day. But that because I have the metabolic flexibility that I do, that my blood sugar, my before sleep blood sugar, my morning blood sugar, I'm gonna bounce back. And so
Yeah.
I loved that. And even today, I woke up at 72 milligrams per deciliter, and 2 days after the cake. And that's what it's about. Is like, okay, how can I enjoy the things that I love, or how can any of us enjoy the things that we love and have resilience? One, things in our toolbox, but also have the resilience to bounce right back from that,
That's right.
even
Yeah.
in midlife.
That's right. And that's what I mean, is like, food should be pleasure. You don't have to be withholding food to be healthy. Like, it can be pleasure. And pleasure is an interesting one because, we feel guilty if we're like using food to like give us a little happiness hit. But I use healthy food all the time to give me a happiness hit. I mean, before I even came on this podcast, I was driving home from my therapist, and I was like, oh, I got to go get my favorite chicken curry salad from Whole Foods. And I was like, this is gonna be great. I'm gonna have it before I came on your podcast. And I knew everything that was in there was healthy. So again, we need to stop looking at food as being something that is that we should shame ourselves about, we should feel guilty about, and we need to enter into a different relationship with it. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm hoping that Eat Like a Girl will give people, is some idea on how to change their relationship to food.
Now, is it part, I know you've got 4 other principles. And I think, some of it, I know the how I ate in my 20s and 30s. I mean, it's evolved, and it's really evolved to today as well. And part of that is I'm always thinking about a question I ask myself a lot is this what I'm about to put this into my future brain? Like, is this going to be the
Oh, I
food
love
I would
that.
love for my future brain? The
Oh, I
one
love
that's going to
that.
be asking Mindy questions 3 days later.
Yeah,
And so
I
those
love that.
And that's how I think. I'm like, is this going to be life-giving to a point where I'm going to have some mental bandwidth?
Yeah.
And that's how I think about it. And also a lot of healthy foods, polyphenol foods, cruciferous foods, like these are foods I love today.
Yeah.
Like one of my favorite foods, my son was asking me yesterday, Mama, what's one of your favorite foods? And I was like, raspberries. Like I'm obsessed with raspberries. And we were just talking about our favorite foods. Obviously his was ice cream. Let's
Yeah, right. Of course. Hey, if I was a kid right now, I'd probably say the same thing.
It was so cute. But is there, in terms of retraining our palate, do you talk a little
Yes.
bit about that in the book?
Yeah, so I'm so happy you brought this up because this is one big thing that we saw was that the more people learned how to metabolically switch. So the more they went into these little short bursts of fasting windows and then went back to food, the more their taste buds changed and their cravings changed. So I dove in to try to understand why this was happening. And one of the biggest reasons it happens is that when you are in a fast, whether it's 13 hours, 17 hours, 24 hours, you are changing your microbiome. And if you go back into food and you feed those microbes, you feed them polyphenol, probiotic, prebiotic foods, what you find is you grow a whole new set of bacteria in your gut. And as you grow that new set of bacteria, your cravings change. It's the craziest thing. And the biggest area that we know this from is candida. So candida is a fungus in the gut. And when it's prevalent, it will make you crave carbs, sugar, alcohol. I've had candida in my 20s. I know the cravings that it like hijacks your brain, and there's no amount of willpower that can get you over that hump to not eat the food. But if you use your metabolic switch, using some short fasting bursts and then using your first meal, in the book, I have a whole chapter on why your first meal matters. And you lean into some of these probiotic, prebiotic, and polyphenol foods, you literally change your microbes and you literally change your cravings. And we see it over and over and over again. So one of the principles is feed your microbes, not your taste buds.
I love that.
What I probably should have said in like a little asterisk, and then, your taste buds will eventually change because you got to think about just like you think about your brain first, I always think about my microbes first.
Yeah. I mean, your gut bugs, we call them tummy friends in my house.
Oh, that's cute. That's so cute.
Yeah, our tummy friends. And I mean, and you even like, oh, my bacteria made me do it, or my candida made me
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, retraining those bacteria so that you've got the right bacteria that are craving the foods that are really going to be life-giving.
That's
And
right.
I want to talk about that first meal. And so I want to break down for those who maybe some of us are doing, maybe it's a 13-hour, 12-hour, 14 hours. So we're kind of breaking that fast in the morning, what that first meal of the day looks like. And then I guess maybe more extended fasts where, okay, we're coming out of a fasting period.
Yeah.
And now the kind of that first, I know it ain't cereal. Okay.
Oh, that was good. It ain't cereal. This is not your mama's cereal. No, I don't even reference cereal in the book.
I know you don't.
That was so good. Yes, it's not cereal. So you know what I always say is be intentional about that first meal. So what do you want to do? If you want to build muscle, then yes, you need to make sure that first meal has protein in it, especially if you've been in this state of autophagy, which usually kicks in around 17 hours of a fast. It's where the cells are starting to break themselves down. Sometimes it even feels like muscle is breaking itself down. But if your first meal is packed with protein, I will definitely buy into the 30 grams of protein, but I would really love people to not count anything. But if you have a real packed protein meal, you're now stimulating mTOR and you are growing muscle. So you want to be intentional. If you want to build muscle, make sure that first meal has some protein in it. The second thing is we talked about if you want to regrow your microbes, then make sure you have those 3 P's in there. And then if you're a boomerang person, if you're like, oh my God, once I open up my eating window, I just want to eat everything, then you want to make sure that there is some fat and some fiber in there, because that is going to regulate blood sugar so you don't end up in this ravenous place, and the fat can turn off the hunger hormone. So what I found with Fast Like a Girl was how many people just weren't intentional about breaking their fasts. And if you're not intentional about breaking your fast, it actually makes fasting difficult. Once you start to learn this metabolic switch and you're like, okay, I'm going to fast 15 hours today and I'm going to break it with, chia seed pudding, which we have a great recipe for that in this book.
Love it.
And now you're like, oh, and it's a full fat and I'm getting the prebiotic of chia seeds in there. And then, and a little extra, the coconut has a little bit of extra protein. Like all of a sudden your cravings are changing. So for shorter fasts, there's that. For 3-day fasts or longer, and I usually say really anything over 24 hours to me is a longer fast. There is a 4-step process that I put in the book where your re-entry back into food should be quite methodical. Because you haven't been eating and those microbes have completely changed the terrain inside that gut. You have a really cool opportunity to let those microbes grow, to grow yourself an incredible gut. What'd you call them? Happy bugs?
I call them, tummy friends.
Tummy friends, to grow all your tummy friends. Yeah, so you can grow all your tummy friends, and then those tummy friends make you serotonin, and they support your immune system, and they go and they coordinate the balance of your blood sugar. We even know that the tummy friends can upregulate GLP-1 hormone and kick down hunger. So, but it's that first meal. It's the first meal.
Agreed.
We got to think about the tummy friends there.
I think the first meal, hands down, is the most critical. I've seen it on CGMs. I see it on people's energy. I see it in cravings. Like that is, and for me, Mindy, it's very much a yes and. One, I want to maintain my muscle, so I'm focusing on the protein, but also the fiber and the prebiotic foods and the polyphenols. Like can all of those be on the docket on the same?
Yes.
The same breakfast?
Of course. Yeah. You can do them all at the same. Yeah. You can do them all at the same time. But again, it's like asking yourself, am I trying to build muscle? Am I trying to regrow my tummy friends? Or am I trying to stop hunger? Oh, I'm trying to do all three. Okay, let me put these all together. As opposed to, what am I in the mood for? Like,
right.
I'm going,
man, when have I asked myself that question?
Right. Okay. But this is important because how many people ask them, I mean, we do this all the time. You want to go out to dinner with a friend. They're like, what are you in the mood for? Everything. When it comes to food, we're always talking about what we're in the mood for. Why don't we ask, what does your body want?
Yes. That's where I'm at in my life at this point. Yep. Like I'm, what's going to feed my tummy friends? It's such a constant conversation in my house about tummy friends. Cause my son is maybe discovering other foods outside of our home a little bit. And
what do you say? That's your tummy friends won't like that?
Well, we're really mindful because we don't want to villainize. I don't know, and maybe it's just my way of parenting. Obviously, there are certain foods that deserve to be villains. There's like the obesogens and the ultra processed foods. But let's say it's siete. Like at my birthday party, siete tortilla chips. I still don't think siete tortilla chips are. The tummy friends aren't necessarily loving those per se.
No,
I wouldn't put those in
your
the
blood sugar
category. Yes. In the blood sugar.
They'll spike your blood sugar.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I don't care how much guacamole you try to slap on that. Like that chip, like it ain't gonna save you. And so for me, those are not, when I ask about my future brain, siete tortilla chips ain't it. I had a plethora of carrots and Persian cucumbers and heirloom cherry tomatoes. Like that's where I'm leaning. And I've trained my palate and my tummy friends and my brain to be like, girl, that's it. Okay. That's what you do. And so, but my son sees the big old mound of chips because we have friends coming over who like, that's where they're playing. And I'm not trying to control everybody's food situation at my party, like to a degree. Like welcome to a place where your tummy friends will really appreciate you. Bring
your tummy friends in. Your tummy friends are welcome at this party.
Exactly. Your tummy friends are going to love this party. Okay. But he sees the big old mound of chips and he's had a couple here and there. It happens. Maybe grandma slips him one or somebody. And he's like, ooh, processed salty something or other, And so it's more like, our tummy friends, it's not our favorite tummy friends food. Like that's not what's going to help grow our tummy friends.
Great.
And so a couple are okay. And can I pair that? Is it okay if I give you some blueberries? Like
Yeah.
what can you have with this? So one,
Yeah.
we very much limit when we never have him in the house for one.
Yeah.
But if he does have one, it's like two. And then I'm backing it up with some tummy friends food. So
Yeah.
it's an ongoing conversation. And more so, I think it's around the positivity of what these life-giving foods are doing for your tummy friends. And that's really that's kind of where we're playing.
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. It's a great lesson. And I think hopefully people listening are understanding the tummy friends. It's a great, I used to always say to my patients that you have to think of these microbes like a pet. Like they're going to give you oxytocin, they're going to give you serotonin, the dopamine, they're going to make you sleepy and relaxed. They'll give you some melatonin, they'll stimulate your parasympathetic nervous system. Like they want you to be balanced and happy. You only have one goal, keep them alive.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to feed these good microbes. And that's when I came up with the polyphenol probiotic and prebiotic foods, was like, think of it like a pet. You know, a horrible story, but I'll never forget when we went on vacation one time and forgot about the hamster and the kid's hamster. Yeah, it wasn't good for the hamster when we came back. Horrible story, but I was like, oh yeah, that's what happens when you don't feed a pet. The same thing's happening in your gut.
For sure. Absolutely. And I mean, I want to pin a pin back in to that breakfast, that breakfast routine, that morning routine, or whatever, whenever you're breaking your fast, that first meal, how critical it is for setting the tone for your microbiome,
Yeah.
and for all of the brain benefits and all the things. I mean, either way, it's coming back to the brain to some degree, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't have a breakfast in the morning that I'm not thinking about, like, am I hitting like that I'm nourishing my body in a way that's going to, I always ask myself, like, what am I doing today that's going to help me feel more alive tomorrow?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
You know,
food is the number one lever.
yeah. Well, and here's the thing about food is you do it so many times throughout the day. So you want to get that one right.
Yeah.
So, you know, exercise, you might do it once. And maybe if you don't get it right, it's not as big of a deal. But food, you're having all day long. My favorite quote that I keep in the forefront of my mind all the time is, do something today that your tomorrow self will thank you for. Mm. And literally when I go and work out, I'm like, especially on my heavy weightlifting days, I'm like, there's nothing about the heavy weightlifting days that I enjoy. And I am just like, this is for you, 90-year-old self. This is for you. And then literally I think about her the whole workout. So I think with food and even with fasting, we can think about that. Like, what are you doing today for the benefit of the tomorrow self? And I think all too often we're just doing the comfort of today. We're very much in a comfort culture right now.
I want to, extra grace to all of us that are getting pushed
Yeah.
to our limit, with the obligations, with family responsibilities and all the things. And you're just like, well, can I just have this one thing? Can I just have, and I get it. But then ultimately it lends to a spiral of us not having enough energy to have that capacity. Right. And so it is, I mean, extra grace to all of us out there, all of us women in midlife who are holding it all together for everybody and still trying to make these really big choices, good choices for ourselves that require intention, you know? So I feel you. I mean, I think that if I eat something that's not great for me, maybe we went out to dinner and I didn't know about an ingredient in that food, because you're just kind of in a no man's land, even if you chose somewhere that you think is going to be great, and man, you wake up the next day and you're just like, oh goodness, what did I do? Like, it was an accident. Like, that's how much I feel, at least for me. I don't have my body's like, we either eat good or you're not going to feel good tomorrow. Like, it feels that way. I'm curious about, because this is kind of where I'm at in my journey, just like, I do really well probably up to 14 hours. Even in the follicular phase of my cycle, Mindy, I just don't feel like I have a lot of energy resilience to push a longer fast. 2 years ago I did, but now I just don't. And so
how's your stress compared to 2 years ago?
Oh, I mean, it's probably the same, but my resilience is less.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't have as much capacity as I used to. And so I eat early in the evening. So I try to, we always eat before 6, at the latest 6:30. I don't touch anything else except for water, maybe some tea until I break my fast at like maybe 8 a.m. the next day. But that's as far as I can really push me without feeling like dizzy, super grouchy, tired. It's in a place that I am in my life, kind of like mid-period, peri. Is that appropriate, or should I expect
Yeah.
more?
No, because you remember when you go into those perimenopausal years, the adrenals are starting to have to carry that load of making sex hormones. And then just knowing a little bit about what your last 2 years have been, they've not been like you weren't given the easy path.
No.
And so this was the whole premise of Fast Like a Girl, is that I laid out 6 different length fasts that you pulse. You are not necessarily meant to do a fast every single time. And I recommended that you pulse it around your menstrual cycle.
Yeah.
But now, in your situation, I actually have been there before, where when stress gets so high, I'm doing so many things, my resilience is low. I don't throw a 3-day water fast. Sometimes I can't even throw a 24-hour fast. So I'll use the example of when I turned in the manuscript for Fast Like a Girl, I had like a 6-month window where I wasn't doing that much before, the book was about to come out into the world. And so I was doing 3-day water fasts all the time. Like I was like super into them. I loved it. I was feeling really healed by it. Then the book came out and I was on a plane every week, and I was speaking at conferences and doing interviews for a whole year. By the end of the year, I was barely intermittent fasting, because I knew that my stress had gone up so high that my fast needed to go low. And that's why, that's a lot of people are critical of fasting, because for women, because they're like, it's too much stress. It's too much stress. So you have to assess your stress levels. And if they are maxed, then I don't care what point of your cycle, it needs to be a shorter fast. And then once that stress improves, now you can go into the longer fast. So like for me, I've taken some time off this summer. I'm about to go spend 3 weeks in Europe on vacation. And you better believe when I come back, I'm doing a 3-day water fast. I know my nervous system will be ready for it. So your body's just telling you, when you're like, I'm crashing at 14 hours consistently, your body's saying, this is about all we can take, or you blow the circuit.
Yeah. Okay. I think a lot of us, as I was, were listening, looking for that permission. I think even I was looking for that permission. Like I was listening to myself, and there is a few days in that high follicular, they're trying to wisp away. I'll tell you what, they're just, it's
They're
all
like,
of a sudden,
hey, there's only a few of us down here.
it used to be 10 days and now I'm down to like 3. And,
like each one that comes out, they're like, and another one, like it's, and here's the last of your eggs making an appearance.
Exactly. And so I will notice, because I really do a body scan every day of like, ooh, can I stretch this maybe till 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, and it's that little, maybe between like day 7 and 10 where I check in and body scan. And I'm like, ooh, I can stretch this today.
Amazing.
And then the window closes.
Yeah, amazing. I love that. Yeah, and that is the whole premise of Fast Like a Girl and Eat Like a Girl, is here are some principles for learning how to metabolically shift. Now, your goal is to find your path. So in Eat Like a Girl, I have a whole section on my favorite phrase, which is N of 1. Mm-hmm. Be your own N of 1. In a world where we are putting science up on this pedestal and saying only evidence-based, only science-based, my brain says, why don't we use science and evidence-based messages to get in the ballpark? You're going to get inside the ballpark. Now you decide what seat you're going to sit in. Like you have to make the decision for you. But we keep giving our power away to diets, to medications, to doctors, to health influencers. And the number one goal of Eat Like a Girl and Fast Like a Girl is for you to take your power back. And that means that here are the principles, you get to play with them and now see what's right for you without guilt, without shame, because this is your body and nobody gets to choose what goes in your body but you.
Mm. That is so powerful. And I agree. Like it's N of 1. Like you got to figure out what works for you with wherever you're at in your life. And as women, there's the one thing that is constant is that we're changing.
This is true. Let our spouses know.
Exactly.
If you thought you were marrying the same woman year after year, guess what?
She gonna change. Yeah, exactly.
She's gonna change.
I know we talked about some biomarkers, we talked about things, and obviously not becoming obsessive with those things. I know that there's a fine line between, again, kind of learning about your body, learning about your biometrics, and then letting them take over. So there's that fine line. Are there any other, when it comes to learning our bodies, and some of us are learning to trust our bodies in this journey. I think that's a big part of what this book is going to be about, is learning to trust our bodies and learning to trust what feels right for us and be intentional. Any tools that have been supportive of you in that journey as well, that you would love to share? Like obviously tracking your cycle, those kind of things can be helpful.
Yeah, tracking your cycle is great. You know, using an app is wonderful. The biggest thing is continuous glucose monitors. But you know, if you don't have the money for all that, this is my other real cry to the world: is health doesn't have to cost money. Everybody should have the right to be healthy. So let's look at your symptoms. And after you eat a meal, you should be energized. You should have more brain clarity. You should not be hungry. Like if you eat a meal, you have brain fog, you want to take a nap, that meal wasn't right. You didn't have the right combination of food. So we can look at our symptoms to see, did it fuel me? I'm such a fan of food being hormonal medicine. Like, well, when you take a pill that your doctor gave you, you take it and then hours later, you're like, oh, it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. Food should be the same thing. Hours later, you should have a positive upside. And if that's not happening, then the meal you put together was not the best combination and you want to rethink it.
I love that. Okay. So yeah, really listening to those symptoms, or maybe no symptoms.
Right.
And and hopefully that's the win. Like you're getting the side benefit versus symptoms after that. I agree. I think also, I think about, even if you can't afford a CGM, which unfortunately, most of us have to buy them. Doctors aren't really prescribing them yet, unfortunately.
Yes.
And I always tell people, like, if you're tired after a meal, or you're hungry 2 hours after a meal, or you're super cranky and moody after a meal, like those are some big signs that you jumped on that roller coaster. So I think that information, like listening to our bodies, doing those body scans, figuring out what food is doing for us or maybe not so much doing for us, is a great indicator.
Yeah, agreed. And again, I just think we need to be sensitive to the fact that and a lot of the things we're promoting in the health world cost money, and it's just gotten to be a little out of control. We need to come back to the foundational principles of a healthy lifestyle. And at the center of that needs to be metabolic health.
I agree. I always say, don't major in the minors.
Yeah, that's right. That's very much so.
You see a lot of the bro energy of all these things, we should be doing, and all this biohacking stuff. And it's like, we've lost sight of what the foundational pieces that can really move the needle. Yeah.
Biohacking is one of the worst terms for a woman. And when I was speaking at a conference in Europe this last summer, and it was a biohacking conference. And I got up there and it was like a room of 1,000 women. And I was like, look, for starters, like, I honor this conference, but can we stop trying to hack a woman's body? Like, a woman's body is tender. It needs us to be gentle with it. It's rhythmic. Why don't we look at bioharmonizing?
Yeah, bioharmonizing.
Let's create a whole subset of the biohacking world and call it bioharmonizing, because a woman's body needs you to be in harmony with it, not hacking and like try to make something happen a lot better. I don't even think it's possible in a woman's body. Harmony is what we should be going for.
Yeah, I'm like, where's the term? It's bioharmony. I was like, bioharmony, like, and I'm so grateful you said it, because we have to honor this intelligence, this beautiful innate female intelligence that we have. Like,
that's right.
It's so incredible. And I think the body is too intelligent to be hacked, especially a woman's body. And that's so I love the languaging around harmonizing with our system. And honestly, gosh, that just feels so much nicer.
Right? Like, who doesn't want to bioharmonize?
Yeah.
Like, biohack is like, oh God, what am I trying to hack into? But I'm going to be working with my body, not trying to shove something into it to make it better.
Yeah. Yeah. Efforting my body, gosh, exactly. Oh goodness. Yeah. I mean, that if we can really shift the mindset around that, then we win. We win. Right.
That's right. Agreed.
Agreed. And Mindy, honey, okay, the book's available everywhere.
Yes.
And where would you love us to plug in? Like, where is the place you want us to get it? Do you want us to head to your website? Where would you love us to go and find you?
Well, you know what? The first place that I always recommend is really, if you have the time, please go meander into your independent bookstore. Like, I don't know about you, but I was raised going to bookstores all the time. My mom, we would go in as a family and everybody go to their favorite section and sit down and start reading. We do not want bookstores to go away. So if you have an independent bookstore, please go to that bookstore. Otherwise, we'll leave a link. And I'm all of a sudden, I'm like, I don't even know the landing page link, but we'll leave a link with all the different options. But there's like bookshop.org will take you to some of that you can order online. It'll take you to some of those independent bookstores. And, Barnes and Noble, both the in-store and the online are all really great. And of course, Amazon. So
Yeah.
I want to say
get both copies. So I'll have Audible. Because
yes,
yep, I will have Audible always. If I want to get through a book like that this month, like your book, I'm buying it on Audible first. And then if I have time to take my son to the bookstore, I will go get to the bookstore. But worst case, then I like having both. It's a yes and for me. I want Audible and I want the hard copy. So if you're like me and life is as full as mine, go get the Audible and then get the hard copy. That way you are consuming the content.
That's right.
Don't wait until your nighttime routine to read this book. Okay.
So you know what we did with Eat Like a Girl, which I'm hoping people will do, is it's really two books. So the front part is the principles of eating, all the lists and things we've been talking about. And the back half is 100 recipes that I hired two professional chefs to create. One was a plant-based chef and one was an omnivore chef. Both incredible recipes. So then when I read for the audiobook, I was like, what I hope people do is while they're cooking, they're listening to the Audible while they're cooking. Because now, like on the top of every recipe, I have an explanation of why that recipe is so good for your hormones. So like, I hope that you're cooking something and then you're listening to me tell you the principles, and then that way it can get into your brain more effortlessly.
That is what I will be doing, because that's often what I am doing. I am usually listening to something while I'm cooking,
Yeah,
and I love, and that's the other reason is the recipes, you need the hard copy for the recipes. You cannot take that from Audible, but but then I want you to all listen to this book or read it. And if listening is the best way you can do it, then get it done that way. So that's what I want to emphasize.
Yeah, agreed.
So
and I buy the hard copy and Audible all the time. It's funny. I just, sometimes it's like I get into a book and I'm like, oh, I just want to consume this faster. And then I pop the Audible in.
I mean, I just sent you a whole list.
I know you did. And I'm hopping on a 14-hour plane flight tomorrow. So I'm downloading some of those. But thank you for that. You were like a wealth of knowledge in the category of romantasy, right? Is that what we call it?
Yes, romantasy.
Romantasy. I'm like, wow. Okay, off to Europe I go with my stack of Audible romantasies.
Yes. All right, honey, thank you. It's been such a pleasure. We'll have all the links in there. I think I have made it clear that you need to go get this book. And I will shout it from the rooftops in the outro as well, making sure you can get all of it. Mindy, it's such a pleasure to have you.
Oh, I love you so much. It's funny, this is a perfect example of where like I've been doing so many things today. And then I come skating into your beautiful face and your incredible energy. And now I'm like all perked up. I'm ready for the back half of my day. And you're ready for one more interview.
I am. One more interview.
Yeah. So you got this.
Keystone, and then Tummy Friends conversations.
Then Tummy Friends. Then Mom passes out.
Yes. And then Mom passes out. Exactly.
Well, thank you.